Personality, just like you. All right, thank you. All right, so I wanted to read the bio for District Attorney Kim Ogg. She's our district attorney. Understand?
Yes.
That's right. So Harris County DA Kim Ogg, a native Houstonian and a lawyer for 35 years. That's a long time.
Yeah. Not like that.
But you know your business. During her first term, woo-hoo, she successfully advanced major drug police reform. Okay.
Yep.
Hold on. I got everything here. In a second. All right. Police accountability, prosecution of police corruption and shootings, okay? Diversity and leadership, okay? In the office, thank you very much, to change that color in there, add some. And protection for crime and victims through legislative form. So she knows how to get it done, okay? All right, DA Ogg has done many great things through her terms. But to sum it up, her office is strong on advocating in court case blocking, okay? And also to push important cases to trial and a conclusion for it. So that's really important, People in jail for 10 years haven't had a court date, and don't even know which direction they're going. So that's what you're doing. That's great. And we'd like to thank you so much for coming and attending the Cannabis Reform of Houston meeting, okay? Thank you. All right, so here we go. All right. I've got it all together, don't I?
Totally organized.
I didn't want to mess this up.
Dispelling the myth, right?
Well, you're very special, so I wanted to make sure that this was special for you, okay? And then I got everything out. Okay, so the order of the meeting tonight is the host, me, LaTonya at Whittington, will have 4 to 5 questions for our DA, and after, I will give the audience a chance to ask questions, okay? Now, we will pick you by order of raising your hand. Ethan, if you will, make sure the order of who raised their hands, and then I'll put, I appreciate that very much, smiley face, okay? It was in there, smiley face. And then, that means one question only, because I don't know how much time our DA has. She can't be with us at 10 o'clock tonight. So be ready. And you'll have 1 minute to speak and ask your question. And then DA Ogg may answer with no limit of time. No, there are 2 minutes to answer, okay? Because we want to hear from her. Got it? Everybody got it? I'll repeat it again. That's okay. I got the card right here. All right, so are you ready finally?
I am ready.
I talk a lot. You know that already.
That's called lobbying. That's how you
Get
get
it.
things done. You build relationships, you educate, you advocate, and you do it over and over until you pass the bill that is finally acceptable to enough people to create a majority of the vote. That's what we did with victims' rights, and that's what you're going to do with cannabis reform.
Yeah.
Just stick with it. There's a lot of sick people in Texas who want this and who need it. And you're going to advocate for them until you win.
That's right. And I want to, right?
Yes,
Yes, I am.
Yes, LaTonya.
That's why people listen.
Thank you so much for that. That means the world coming from you. But you've watched me so long do this, and I haven't given up, have I?
No, and you've made progress. It's small, it's each session, but there's progress. And that's success. When you're trying to change the law, it's like trying to turn a battleship. You can't just turn it. our state's not going to just legalize it.
Right.
They're going to incrementally go toward legalization, starting with medical, which has already happened. And then they're going to expand medical because so many people have those needs and they're rejecting opioids and other pharmaceutical drugs. And we have a huge veterans population in Texas, and veterans are pushing for this. And so I think you've got a combination that will eventually create enough compassion, even with a Republican-led legislature, that eventually you'll get there.
Yeah. All right.
Yes. Snap your fingers. That was one of those moments. I love my DA. You know, you speak power to truth, you know, and I really appreciate you understand, you know. And I get it. All right, now, first question. Let's get to it. Now, what motivated you to come up with the diversion program in the beginning?
The diversion program is a pre-charge program, which means before you ever get to jail, there is an opportunity to take an education class instead of going to jail. So here's how we did it. A lot of DAs around the country were issuing letters that were political statements about what they would and would not prosecute. And that did not go over well with law enforcement because their job is to respond to the public, and the public didn't understand why certain DAs wouldn't take certain charges. They might agree with not taking marijuana charges, but then they might want you to take a theft charge. And so you had DAs issuing long lists of crimes that they wouldn't prosecute. Instead of do that and create greater dysfunction with the police and the community, because the community would think that the police weren't willing to do their job, I went to all the police chiefs, 86 chiefs we talked to. You would not know that there's 86 law enforcement agencies in Harris County, but there are. And I'll give you an idea. Houston Police, Sheriff's Department, 8 constables, 26 independent school district police departments, medical center police, Pasadena Police, Tomball Police, Katy Police. So there's many different organizations, and we have one state law against marijuana.
Right.
So they all had different ways and levels of enforcing it. But at the end of the day, it took cops an average of 4 hours for every arrest, whether that arrest was for murder or marijuana. 4 hours to book somebody. That means they are not on the street protecting you, answering calls. So we came up with the cost estimate of what it costs to incarcerate people for marijuana. And it was about $25 million every year, because 10,000 people a year were being arrested and jailed for marijuana possession. Simple possession under 4 ounces. We're not talking carrying a load down I-10. We're not talking 50 pounds. We're talking a joint, generally speaking. 10,000 people who would no longer, because of their criminal record, be eligible for all the employment opportunities that they would have if they didn't have a record. And many people catch these cases when they're young. But it affects your employment record no matter what. So I talked to all the police chiefs about the time, the cost, and the impact on the offenders. And we all agreed, yep, it's against the law, and I can't legalize it, and they can't legalize it.
Yeah.
We can't even decriminalize it. But we agreed. That's why my program's sustainable. We agreed that they would offer the education class instead of the arrest. They would seize the cannabis, put it in evidence, and wait. And if the offender went to the class, they would walk out without ever going to jail. If they didn't, eventually we would write a warrant and they would get arrested. So it was a benefit to the average person who was possessing marijuana to have the opportunity to not go to jail and not get a permanent criminal record. That benefits the economy.
Yeah.
That benefits the police department's ability to respond quickly. And that benefited our ability to go after more violent offenders
Yeah.
with the police resources we had. So what motivated me was it was a win-win-win. And the only reason people had not done it before was political.
Yeah.
And so when I ran in 14, the first time I was defeated, but I ran in part on a platform of this program, pre-charge diversion for marijuana offenders. And when I won in 16, I talked to many of the police chiefs, and they came on day 47, and we announced no more arrests for that level of marijuana because it was a win-win-win to use this program.
Yeah.
And so that's what we've done. And for the last 7 years, we've seen 10,000 cases first drop to about 3,000. They were still arresting kids at school. They were still arresting people in drug-free zones. And I could understand that. That was part of my compromise. Because the police said, well, we'll do it in these cases, but we don't want to do it in these cases. So we started out incrementally. Then when they saw crime didn't go up, just because they weren't taking 10,000 people a year, it really started to go down. Then it went to about 1,500 cases a year.
That's
And that was mostly small departments. Now, under 200 people a year are arrested and go to jail for marijuana. And it's in little departments that they must have more time than the rest of us because we're focused on murder and rape and robbery, crimes that hurt people. And some of those small districts, I think, are still wanting the old way of doing things.
Right.
So we approached it by agreement instead of edict. I just felt like collaboration was the way to get it done, and we did. And so for the last 7 years, we have seen really many more people have the opportunity to stay in the workforce. And it's a program I'm really very proud of because it will be sustained. Regardless of what happens in the future, either at this election or other elections, whoever the DA is, because we collaborated with the police instead of making them do it,
Yeah. Right.
it'll be sustainable. And I want to tell you what the hardest part was, because it was motivated by my desire to end racial disparity in this particular area.
Yeah.
Okay.
So most first offender programs benefit white defendants. And that's because most black and brown defendants coming through our system often have a record already. So the hard sell was, I wanted this to be not a first offender program. I wanted it to be a program for everyone.
Right.
So one of the hardest sells was the police would say, are you telling me that if he's been convicted 5 times of felonies and gone to the penitentiary and he has a joint that we can't arrest him? I said, you can, but why do that? Because what you're going to see is that you're arresting fewer white people again, and there will be racial disparity, and that hurts you in our community.
Right.
And they actually agreed that that was hurting police relations in the community.
Right.
Because the greatest disparity in arrest, nobody much cares if a rapist is a certain race. Nobody cares.
Right.
If they did the rape,
Yeah.
we're against that.
That's right.
Same with murder. But when it came to drugs, you saw a lot of policing in black neighborhoods, which then lowers the property value
Right.
Right.
for people who own homes and real estate in areas where there's been a lot of drug busts, because then they become known as high crime areas.
Right.
Right.
And so the economic and the racial disparity was part of my argument back. And the police chiefs agreed.
Right.
They agreed. And so not everybody agrees with every point, but they agreed to do it. And that was the hardest sell, is making it for everyone. If all they had was marijuana under 4 ounces. The amount was a big deal too, but
Absolutely.
that is the dividing line between a Class B misdemeanor and everything else. So we just did it under 4 ounces because that's most everybody who got caught in a car or out on the street.
Actually,
Or whatever
that's
they
a
were doing.
lot. It really is a lot.
It
It's
is
a
a
great
lot.
number.
It is a lot. No, 4 ounces is a lot.
Yeah.
But most
I'm
people
talking about
were
that.
arrested for a joint.
Yeah, for a
Right,
joint
right,
or a
right,
bud,
right.
you know, or something
Yeah.
like that.
So-
and it's still going on.
It is, but I'm really, really proud of the police
Yeah.
for agreeing
Agreeing.
and using their resources against violent crime. That's what we need to do. And so it's been very successful. And I'm really proud of that effort. And it was, believe me, it was a politically daring thing to do. A lot of people on my campaign team were like, "Ooh, you're running for DA. How are you going to do this?" What I told them is, if I can't start fixing the bottom end, I can't fix violent crime. We don't have enough resources to do it all.
Yeah.
And that was a win-win for the public. So I'm proud of the program. I'm proud that we're not contributing to racial disparity. I'm proud of the fact that we're not putting people in jail for something that's legal in many, many states. And I'm proud of the fact that it did not cause crime to go up.
Yeah.
It just didn't. So that's it.
Wonderful. I just love you. I really do. My husband said, well, don't crowd her with questions. I said, I know she's going to answer them and come 100% with them, okay? And that's what you're doing. You're educating us, you know, and making it clear and simple, because a lot of people don't know what the diversion program actually is. You know, they don't know the amount is 4 ounces. They don't know, they just get a ticket, you know.
No ticket.
Okay, so
No
that's
ticket.
taken away.
No ticket.
Just the class, okay?
Take the marijuana.
Okay.
Give the person a sheet that tells them where to go to school. It's online
Okay.
because we changed it during COVID. And
Oh.
it's free if you can't afford it. If you do have any money, it costs $125. But we ask them to pay so that it pays for the program for people who can't afford it.
Okay.
And that's why we charge. I'm hearing criticism about it costs a lot. I just want you to know we utilize people who do have resources so that we can also help people who have no resources.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You always correct me about that. Get it right, LaTonya. All right, so you ready for your next question?
I'm ready.
All right, so most laws, or all the laws for Harris County, and correct me on this, has to go through our commissioner's court. Am I right?
No, the only laws that are passed by the state of Texas.
Right.
Okay.
The county is part of the state. And so to change a law for Harris County, you have to change the law for all counties.
Okay.
Unless they call it bracketing off. And so we've seen some things only apply to Harris County. The election administrator, for example. Legislature banned the election administrator for large counties. So that was a bracketed off deal. But generally, if you want to change something in Harris County, you have to change the state law. And if it is a state law, even the city cannot change it. San Marcos tried to make marijuana possession decriminalized. And now they're being sued by the Attorney General of the state of Texas to say they should be removed from office. The prosecutor who is proposing this or who is endorsing this. And it's called the rogue prosecutor bill. They want us to enforce all the laws. So the reason that we weren't sued is because we didn't just tell the police what to do. We can't do that. And that's why we're not being sued. And it's similar with abortion. Right now, my opponent is criticizing me saying I'm enforcing Greg Abbott's abortion law. That's ridiculous. First of all, I'm a woman. Secondly, I'm a Democrat. And third, I've been pro-choice all my life. So the problem with the law now, this rogue prosecutor bill, is if I say, well, we'll never prosecute anyone for abortion, I can be removed by guess who? By the governor, who would then appoint a pro-life person. So this attack by my opponent, the mail-outs that are going, are particularly offensive because they're a lie.
I do agree. All right, well, kind of going back to that question though, have you considered doing any more cannabis reform laws in Houston? Have you considered that?
Again, I can't reform the law, but we, as time passed during my administration, the police changed their position about marijuana arrests even at school and in the school zones because the labs were not able to test the THC level of any kind of hemp or marijuana, and they were not funded. So interestingly, a Republican-led legislature decided to make hemp legal,
Yeah.
supposedly to help the farmers.
Agriculture.
But what they did is they made it, since hemp is the same as marijuana,
It is.
you have to now test the marijuana to see if the concentration of THC is greater than 0.03.
Okay.
The labs, however, were not funded by the Texas legislature. So it was a pretty hypocritical position to legalize it for farmers, but not to fund the labs and yet keep the illegal law making possession of marijuana a crime on the books. And so eventually they funded the labs, but it's very expensive to test. And so here's what police did. They basically themselves stopped enforcing it because the labs couldn't test it anyway. And the downside of that is we get a lot of weapons arrests because if you're carrying weed and a weapon in your car, it makes the weapon, which is now legally carryable, illegal if you're committing another crime when you carry the gun. And some of those folks carrying guns are really dangerous. They're out on bond, they're felons, they're murderers, they're robbers. It's not just for self-defense. And so when the police catch them with marijuana and the gun, we get the arrest. The problem is, in Harris County, our judges say, well, the police officer can't rely upon the smell of marijuana anymore to stop the car. The law says they can, but our judiciary has sort of adopted a local theory that it's not. And so they throw out all of our gun cases where the arrest was made based on marijuana. And that's bad because you lose cases against some violent people who are armed.
Right. Wow, King.
Thank you for answering that question. All right. So the next one, kind of just want to tell you about my experience, okay? At Austin, I've testified in Austin for years now, since 2017. And I've seen constables and sheriffs from other cities like Tyler, Waller County, and more to come to testify against cannabis bills. So the main one they come to testify for is the one for all over Texas, 1 ounce or less, okay? They're totally against that bill. Anyone who writes it, they're like, no way, you know? And we know basically, I feel like it's they're gonna lose money in their county. And that's basically, you know, their main objective to get this bill stopped. You know, they're up there strong. And my question is for the 89th legislation in 25. Do you think are you in a position to go up and testify in Austin for any cannabis bills, reform for cannabis, and share how well the diversion program has done in Houston, and also talk about how the 4 ounces in the diversion program has stopped a lot of arrests, like you said. Can you share with me on that? Are you able to do that?
Not only am I able, I'm willing to, because our program
I
works.
just want to have a
Our program works. It did not raise the crime rate. It just lowered the arrest rate for the lowest possible level of crime in Texas, a Class B misdemeanor. There are tickets, and we don't have jurisdiction. Tickets are given by cities and by unincorporated areas, but we don't prosecute tickets. So I just think it's really important that policing not be for profit, that it be for public safety. And that's why I would be happy to share the results of our program, because it's a win-win-win for law enforcement also.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's great. So you'll be rolling in the Freedom Bus with me next year, right?
Yeah, rolling is probably the wrong word.
Uh-oh. Let's say riding. Come and jump in for the ride. How about that? You know, I just really thought about that. I see them come up there and they testify against it and all that. And I said, well, maybe my DA can come and share with them, and I'll absolutely be there with you. Okay?
Yeah.
We'll find out which right bill to talk about.
So I really don't believe in politicians saying one thing to a group and a different thing to the Texas legislature. If you believe in your work, and I do, then the message is the same whether I'm talking to the Tea Party, whether I'm talking to the Young Socialists, or whether I'm talking to the State Senate or the House of Representatives in Texas. My testimony will be the same.
All right.
Because cannabis reform is a bipartisan issue. So I have to talk to Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, independents. I've had plenty of them come to my meeting, you know, that supports cannabis reform, because we're going to need everybody. And I think you totally understand that. You do.
I do.
And I do as well. I'm not closed-minded at all about that. When I went to advocate, we did visit Republicans, as also, her name is Clegg. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, but she had a wonderful bill that had chronic pain listed, and I think you heard me talk about it earlier. And I wanted to let her know that we support her, you know, and that's just the way it goes, okay?
So,
Go ahead.
when I ran each time in 14, 16, and 20, I had a number of Republicans not just support it, they advocated for it. Now, why would they do that? It's because of the same reasons. They don't want their kids or grandkids catching a case that ruins their future opportunity. And it's going to ruin it for a rich kid the same as it's going to ruin it for a poor kid.
Yeah.
A record is a record is a record. And so I had a number of people in River Oaks who supported the idea of not prosecuting as long as we got the police to agree. So I think it's really important to advocate with everybody. Libertarians definitely will support you. But I think what you'll find, especially now in public, they may act different. They may. But I really think you'll find support on both sides of the aisle.
Absolutely.
And everybody has family members with health problems.
Absolutely.
And almost all of us know somebody who may have some really painful injury or disease. And with fentanyl, they either got addicted to fentanyl, sometimes after opioid addiction, or their kids bought one pill or somebody gave them a pill. They think it's Xanax or some other drug. A lot of them think it's Adderall.
Right.
And they're kind of addicted to that.
Right.
And they wake up dead. And we're talking 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 16-year-olds. This is affecting everybody.
I know.
And so with that kind of danger associated with opioids and fentanyl, it makes sense to me that an organic plant which has been illegal and is still on Schedule 1, should be preferable to the pharmaceutical industry's answer to our health care, which is take a pill for everything.
Exactly.
And so I think you'll find support on both sides of the aisle. When you get enough votes is when they start to believe that Texas can make as much money as Colorado and New Mexico and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And so the economic benefit to the state is going to be a big part of your advocacy.
Yeah.
Well, I feel that pharmaceutical is definitely against the legalization of cannabis because they lose money. And I looked one year at Lieutenant Dan and Abbott's money that they receive. They have to put it out of how much they receive from pharmaceutical companies. And it was almost $1 million. It was $900,000, okay? But it was very close to $1 million. And that was the same too with Abbott, So do you think that they're gonna wanna stop that good money coming, and legalize cannabis? No, So this is the research that I find out about so I can know really what is the real reason, what is keeping them in the stinking thinking area, where they just can't come out of it. But we'll move on to the next question because I can keep going. All right, now, people addicted to narcotics, they have rehabs, to help them, okay, for narcotics. And that's what those rehabs are for, So I feel like those rehabs are not for cannabis, because it's a natural plant and it's a natural medicine. And it helps me and it helps a lot of people, So do you feel that cannabis should be in the same category as narcotics? What are your thoughts on that?
I do not. I do not think it should be in the same schedule. I do not. I just don't. I really worry about the opioids, the fentanyl, the meth.
Yeah.
It's really taken a lot of lives. And so I just don't think there's a comparative. I don't know anybody who's died of marijuana usage.
Yeah.
But I know of a lot of people who have died from opioid addiction and from fentanyl intake.
Yeah.
And I know about law enforcement who's been injured when they're seizing fentanyl because such a tiny amount can cause such a bad, horrific reaction physically. So I don't see the comparison. And I hope that the federal government changes the schedule and removes cannabis from Schedule 1.
Yeah.
That was really my next question. Is how do you feel about it? Being on Schedule 1. Now, it helps with medical and recreational purpose. It helps you better than alcohol or pills, okay? Those are the two main things that could kill you. It's alcohol, and all the things listed on Schedule 1, those things can kill you. Methamphetamines, you got heroin, you got cocaine, and my goodness, it's not cannabis. Cannabis, if you notice, I'm saying cannabis a lot instead of marijuana. But I know in your paperwork and stuff that you have to write marijuana,
Well,
unfortunately.
that's what it is in the law.
And the law, right?
It's referred to as marijuana.
And it will never probably change, which it should because it's a racial statement, Do you want me to go into it with you? Okay.
Or not.
Well, would you like to say, Sean? Would you like to tell her
What?
about marijuana and the name and where it came from?
I don't know where it came from.
Okay. Well, this was, when it was legal, cannabis was legal in the 1800s, okay? And it was against the law for you not to grow cannabis and hemp in your land, you know. And of course, this was in the 1800s, right? And so people had it, you know, it was just the wonderful thing. Now, when it became decriminalized, it was a person, he raped someone, and his name was Juan, okay? The lady, her name was Mary, and so what they did was he was under cannabis, you know, they found that in his system. So what they did was they took the Mary and they took the Juan, and so that's what they put it together as marijuana.
Wow.
Okay, I've never heard that.
Yeah, I've done my research.
They were doing blood tests in the 1800s.
You don't think so? Yeah. Well, what they did was, if anything, he had some, and they found it on him. Okay. So that's probably the correction of it. Thank you. Thank you. It's still a horror story, you know, and that's why I say cannabis a lot, because that's a sad story. And then actually, when you leave here tonight, you can go look it up, you know, do some research.
I'll go look it up.
All right, she's gonna go look it up. Let's give her a hand clap for research, everybody. Come on now.
What lawyers do.
35 years, okay. You just say, don't remind me. So I maybe missed some parts of the story, but you know, it's on our thing that I have in my room. It has a lot of laws and different things that happened in the 1800s, and it also discussed when it was legal at the time. And again, it was illegal for you not to grow it, you know. And that was a wonderful time. I wish I was in the 1800s. Maybe that's where I needed to be. All right then, so let's get on to the next question. Let's see. All right, well, we're almost done. Do you think did you have enough questions there? You know, were you screened too bad?
I want to know if anybody in the audience has any.
Okay, we're getting to that, but you got some speed questions that I want you to do.
All right.
And you can say it in a sentence, or you have 1 minute to answer. However, but we discussed this a little earlier. I was telling you about what I heard from your other candidate. And I wanted to know your feelings on these things, because I was totally hurt by his comments, you know, and I didn't want to get really too political. I didn't, because, you know, I want to discuss cannabis and how important this is, but I'm very afraid of what's to come, okay? Because I really feel like your opponent is totally lost about cannabis, and I think he's putting it, I'm sorry, Sean, I had to say it, okay? He's putting cannabis in the same section as narcotics, you know, and that's his way of thinking, you know. And me talking to him, he's already caught in his thinking, and there's nothing that I could say, you know, to change his mind. You know, from all the questions that you were asked this evening was correct questions for me and for your constituents that consume cannabis for medical and recreational. Okay? She deserves a hand clap on that. She really does. And, you know, I'm going to do everything in my power. That's why I did this today. Even sick, I'm here, you know, to help you, you know. I remember, you know, you had to send your assistants, but we gave you an award for the diversion program, yeah.
I have that award in my office.
And you deserve it, you know. And it was your first term, but it's still going through all of these terms. And it's helping us, and we do appreciate it. Even though possibility you can get done more, but you're fighting with the powers that be. I mean, I'm just amazed to hear you sat and spoke with 86 law enforcement to get this thing done. You're amazing. Hand clap.
I believe in it.
You know, And that's wonderful, and I thank you so, so very much. Okay, so these are speed questions, and I can't answer no speed questions. I go too fast, too much, and too long, okay? All right, give me a second. All right, speed question 1. All right, misdemeanor diversion program was done. Your first term, do you feel you've done more? Do you feel that you've done all that you can for the cannabis reform in Houston during your whole term?
I feel like I've done everything I can under existing law. What needs to change is state law. And I feel like if we show that not arresting and prosecuting for it is not making things more dangerous, and it's giving law enforcement more time for violent crime, that may be a compelling reason. I think that legislators are often moved by how much money something will make in the state. I also think that should they legalize and regulate cannabis, that the state would benefit and that it could be utilized for really important other things. It could be used for not just law enforcement, it could be used for the treatment of drugs for people who have substance abuse issues. It could be used for unrelated things. It could help children who are in the foster care system. So that stream of money could be put to use in other areas that don't enjoy enough funding. It could be used to fund mental health treatment.
Absolutely.
So I think we're missing the boat with everybody going on vacation to states where it's legal, and we have the biggest state
Yeah.
with lots of things to see and do here,
That's what we're
and that
doing.
we're missing out on a lot of tourism.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. People are flying. I did to Colorado, Denver, just to experience what that would be like, you know. And those 3-4 days was the best days of my life. I'm just being honest, you know. But I was able to get my particular medicine that I needed, you know. Actually, if I lived in that state, I would be prescribed a certain type of cannabis for my condition, right? So that's the difference, you know. A lot of us, well, what we're doing is we're going to black market right now. And some we get that'll help, some we get it doesn't, you know. So that's the thing about getting it decriminalized so that we can get it legalized, right? And that we're prescribed the cannabis that we need that's going to help me, right? I'm gonna give it to you, all right? Now, let's say Kush would be good for me because it's something that relaxes you, okay? So that's what I would need to help relax the nerves on the right side of my face. Any type of Kush type of cannabis, okay? And then let's say sour diesel, which is more of a hybrid that's in between, you know, and then it has some sativa in it, you know. That would be like a daytime cannabis that I could smoke, right? But, you know, it isn't something that would help me as opposed to someone who might need that type of cannabis that's more energetic, because something that is like Kush, it probably gets them down and they're sleeping. You know, there's certain kind. And so that's one of the issues that we're going through here. You may not hear these things. That's what you're here for. You know, to hear exactly what's going on really in the cannabis community, you know. We're good people. We're not bad people. We're just trying to medicate ourselves the most natural way that we can, okay? So, but we'll talk about that more later, okay?
Well, let's say something about that.
Go ahead.
So all of healthcare seems to be now trying to focus on the individual's, not just disease, but the way it affects different people. So diabetes might affect me one way, and it might affect you a completely different way. Cancer, I know they're trying to treat very specifically to that one person's type of cancer, where it is, etc. And they're crafting the medicine to that particular person. So it would make sense that for medical usage, you would do the same thing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Great answer, great answer. Okay, so my last question is very important, and then I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to the audience. All right, do you feel that your constituents that consume cannabis, this is what upset me, but let's see what you say. Do you feel that your constituents that consumes cannabis need help to live a successful life? Do you feel that, we're using cannabis, that we're not successful? I really feel that I'm successful. Cannabis is helping me. I have a husband. I have a daughter, 18, graduating from high school. She's going to Sam Houston College for animation. Okay? I'm a precinct chair. I'm over Our Revolution, Harris County, and also with Our Revolution National. Okay? I'm the founder of Cannabis Reform of Houston, right? And I'm an activist. I'm also a singer. We'll talk about that later. I'm an interviewer, and I do a lot of things. I don't think that I'm unsuccessful. What is your feeling?
I feel that when he said that people who utilize cannabis need treatment, that what he really was talking about was substance abuse addiction, and that to confuse the two is ignorant.
Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
cannabis has not been shown, if I'm correct, to be addictive medically.
Yeah.
It may be psychologically addictive. People may like it and do it a lot, but it's not physically addictive. Where opioids and fentanyl and meth are horribly addictive
Yeah.
and do destroy people's lives. As a lawyer, I've known more people who died of alcoholism
Right.
and substance abuse disorder. I don't know of anyone who died of cannabis use. So
Right.
that's my personal experience. I'm 64 years old. I'm old enough to say what I think.
Yeah.
I'm politically strong enough to say what I believe to everybody. And I don't want to cram it down anybody's throat. I want us to agree. That's the kind of government that we need to make things really change.
Yeah.
And for police to oppose you, I understand that mentality and that thought process. I just don't see it backed up by the evidence. Drug trafficking, there are a lot of people being murdered around marijuana. It's crazy. I've seen more kids killed these days over somebody trying to rob them over a gram or two of marijuana, which is a tiny amount,
Yeah.
being shot because they're being robbed, either as the buyer or the seller. Shot dead, murdered at young ages. And I feel like if we regulated it and legalized it, that we would save more lives yet.
Yeah.
So that's why I understand law enforcement's position. There is a lot of violence associated with it. So regulate it.
Yeah.
Like we do alcohol and cigarettes and other things. And I think the pharmaceutical industry's opposition to it is all about profit.
Right.
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 And that's not what I'm concerned about when I have a loved one with a health problem. I'm concerned about their health,
Right.
Right.
not about the pharmaceutical industry's bottom line.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, that's finally the end of my questions. I couldn't wait to get you. I call it the hot seat, right? So you was in it. You're right. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you coming to Cannabis Reform in Houston meeting. Now, I'm opening the door finally for my guest who has any questions. And who hand is raised first? I think it's Jaime.
Yeah, you know.
Let's see. Will it reach?
He's loud enough.
We talking.
Yeah, I'm
Big
loud enough.
voice.
I want to thank you for actually coming and
Yeah.
giving me an understanding of the law, which we've been dealing with, on the road. And I thank you for also being able to convince and talk with the officers and get them, get an understanding on what we need to do. And I also want to congratulate you for me and
Yeah.
my babies. We met. He
Right,
came to our
friends.
church.
Yeah, we came to
yeah,
church.
yeah. And he's a cool guy, but you got our vote.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yay! Now have y'all voted yet? Okay.
No, good thing we did.
Tuesday.
Okay.
We
Tuesday.
got you.
Tuesday,
Why
I will
not
be there.
at the middle?
Tuesday is election day. I will be working. I'm a presiding judge again.
Okay.
And so I work for you every election.
Probably not as the presiding judge, but behind the scenes.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Trying to
And
keep you out of trouble.
I have a question,
this is my girl.
and this might not
Go
be
ahead.
cannabis reform in particular, but question is, with all the stuff in the news, like what is going to be done in the upcoming year, or from your standpoint on the stuff that kind of got swept under the rug with certain divisions and cases that weren't being investigated, or whatever the case is. I mean, what is your standpoint on what is going to be done in the future to kind of rectify? I don't know if that's a backlog thing. I know they said it's not personnel.
No, it's a product of an old saying in policing that you can't get in trouble for not working. And when supervisors in the police department allowed officers to clear active crimes, sexual assaults, rapes, property crime, without any investigation because they lacked staff. Let me just say, we lack staff. We have fewer people per capita than the police departments do. And you can't take that position and have these jobs. You have to respond to people, and you have to seek justice in every case. And so I'm looking forward to Mayor Whitmire's internal investigation of the police department, because who that hurt were thousands of crime victims, and it destroys their faith in our system. If you call the police and they just don't do anything, you're going to quit calling them. And when you quit calling them, then we've lost the power of our court system to resolve people's differences in an organized fashion. And they start to resolve their differences on the street.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's vigilantism,
Right.
and that's the beginning of the end.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Question?
Yeah, I got a question.
Okay,
I
great.
mean, I see that a lot of problems stem from the public not knowing their constitutional rights. For instance, Texas Penal Code 3802. Police want to arrest you for felons ID when you have committed no crime, and the fact that you won't relinquish your ID, they want to take you to jail. Most of those cases get thrown out, but I mean, is there something being done about police education so that they know the law that they're supposed to be enforcing?
So we don't supervise police. We're a check and balance. We train police when their chiefs ask us to. And of course we emphasize individuals' constitutional rights. Interestingly, it was a gay man named Ray Hill who challenged the law in Texas about providing an ID. There was no probable cause for his stop. They just wanted his ID. He refused. He took that case all the way to the United States Supreme Court,
Oh, wow.
and he won.
Yeah.
And then police were trained, hey, you have to have some articulable, a specific reason to stop someone. But I wouldn't recommend these days trying to resolve your constitutional issue on the street. You cooperate with police and you resolve it in court.
Yeah.
And it is part of the, you can beat the rap but not the ride. But there's so much tension and fear by police and of police that everything seems to be elevated in terms of tension. And that's bad when one of them's carrying a gun.
Yeah.
We don't want that tension. So I really recommend being respectful to police. I taught my child to be respectful, whether he was right or wrong.
Yeah.
And it was my position that if the police stopped him, he was wrong. He was a skinny white kid. That's different than being a black kid.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad you see that, know that.
I do know that. I'm 36 years a lawyer now.
Right.
One more year than the bio says.
Okay, we'll have a little time where you can talk with DA Og, and we're gonna take some pictures with her and different things like that. So I know my husband has a question. You can go and get up and say your
She
question.
pretty much answered it. I was asking about the diversion program. I mean, it's going to continue, right? Nobody's not going to vote it out or anything like that.
No, it hasn't. I haven't been sued by the Attorney General. No one has tried to remove me because of this policy, because of the way we did it. They are trying to remove other DAs who didn't do it that way. It takes a lot of work to touch base with 86 law enforcement leaders. Not everybody wants to do that work. If I'm reelected on March 5th or renominated and I win in November, then the program will continue. All I can guarantee, if I'm not nominated on Tuesday, if I don't win the Democratic primary, then no, I can't guarantee. I can guarantee that it'll continue through December 31st of 2024. But I can't speak for Brand X, my opponent, who offended LaTonya because of his assumption that people who were using marijuana need the same kind or treatment like substance abuse disorder individuals.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
All right, DA Kamag, if you'd like to say one more thing before you go. I'm just caught in the rapture of all this. I'm so happy, I'm a political geek, you know that. And to actually have you here at the Cannabis Reform of Houston, I'm so honored. And I know you wouldn't be here if you didn't love and respect me, and what I fight for, and what I'm going to continue to fight for. And I'm going to look for you to be on the bus with me to Austin, right? Sean, we'll pick her up, right? Along with a secret, guys. Y'all can ride in the back seat.
The security guys will take me because they're so good at that. But this is what I want to say. I really admire your strength in fighting a healthcare problem and trying to change the law for everyone, not just yourself. It really shows that you're part of something greater than yourself, and that's why you're interested in politics. People hate politics now because it's so ugly, and we're so divided as a nation. But in truth, it's the way our democracy is supposed to work.
Right.
But the words compromise, the words collaborate, all we have right now are people fighting each other, and it's to the detriment of all of us.
Right.
And so I think it's really important and admirable that in addition to fighting your own healthcare issues, that you're out there trying to change the world.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. So, if that's all you would like
I
to
think
say.
that's it.
That's it.
Okay, well, we're getting ready to wrap up. Everybody's ready to wrap up. Well, thank you, Ms. Kamag, for coming. And thank you for everybody for coming. All right, 1, 2, 3.